Cara Steinbuchel and she or they. I was in a rally with a friend back in '08, and that was in response to Prop 8 in California. And I just remember saying at the time, like, I hope someday I'll be able to like tell my grandkids about how I fought for marriage. And even though I don't have kids now, it's really miraculous how I am married now. So the middle photo is a picture of my spouse and I before we were married. And it was a Campaign for Southern Equality event. And it was to support marriage. And then the last photo is at our wedding, which was in 2018. So it's a 10-year span between the first photo and the last one. And it just is like a dream come true, but not just for me, but for like so many people that fought through it. And of course, honoring the people that got us to even be able to have the conversation.
My name is Bud Dees. My pronouns are he, him. Behind me is a paper dress that I made from photocopies of images, headshots of drag queens that had performed at my bar from 1990 to present day. The owner keeps these headshots and frames them and puts them on the wall. So I took them down, scanned them, printed them, and then made this dress out of them. I wanted to think about the history of every drag performer that had been in that space before me. And I walk by those photos all the time to get to the dressing room. So I wanted to activate those in a different way. I wanted to think about maybe putting that history like around me, like having that history embracing my body or shaping my body. The design behind me is from my husband's thesis. He worked with drag performers in Gainesville. He collected interviews and engaged in a co-design project with local performers. And together they designed the logo that's behind us too.
Brennan Henshaw. I use they, he pronouns, and I brought items today that are mementos from my first loves, my marriages, partnerships, my support from my allies, family, friends. And I brought pictures and letters, love letters. It's more important than ever to share the stories that we have in queer community, and the story I'm wanting to share is this one of pure love energy that is so freeing to all of us when we first have those like first experiences, second experiences. And it's important because the state and the powers that be are trying to take that away from us. And there's a reason why. It's because that love is a force that frees us, and not just queer people, it frees all people. And it's important for us to see that queer people have been doing this and loving each other and making space for each other to express themselves naturally for all of time. I brought a jug of the trash that is left over from my testosterone gel that I use for gender affirming care as a non-binary trans masculine person. And I've kept every one of those pieces because it shows me I get to put on gel every day. And so every morning I get to give myself a little bit of love and support in expressing myself how I want to in the world. So I brought some of that, and I brought a t-shirt that my friend made me many years ago. That's an artistic rendition of reclaiming the word fag. And I was called that many times as a kid in a negative sense. And I love to have worn that t-shirt proudly so much that it's faded.
My name is Sarah Benoit. My pronouns are she, her. And the items I've brought today are really meaningful, even though they may seem simple. because in 2025 and 2026, I have not only crossed over the line where I've lived in Asheville more than half my life, but I've also been with my wife, Marlena, more than half my life. So the items I brought are essentially a couple of photos. One of my wife, she is a lover of plants, and she talks to plants all the time. There's a picture of us from Short Mountain Sanctuary from probably about 16 or 17 years ago, and she still goes there every year. And we really love the community there of queer people. And I also brought one of my favorite cards that she gave me that was basically about how we're an out-of-the-box couple. We are quite unique and usually leave an impression. And so it always makes me laugh that she gave me that when we first got together. And lastly, is a really cool poster of a show that I did in 2007 with Transmission here in Asheville. And I loved the design of the poster so much that I've kept it all these years. What makes Marlena and I really unique is that when we came together in 2001 here in Asheville, one, it was kind of magical that we grew up about 30 minutes apart from each other. So some of our extended families still live just outside of Philadelphia and just outside of Trenton. And so we kind of instantly had this connection. When we met, we really felt like we were over regular relationships. We were like, this is a mess. We don't want to have anything to do with conventional relationships. We want to be super free. And I feel like we've held that together the entire time we've been together, so almost 24 years. And I just think we've always allowed ourselves to be really true to who we are and given each other a huge amount of freedom. And that freedom has meant a lot of different things over 2 decades. But it's, at the end of the day, it's about accepting each other exactly in the place that we are, growing together at all times. I also think we're an insane amount of fun, even though we're older now. I still feel like we are just 2 wild children sometimes when we go out together. She still loves to go out with me and dance, and we just have a lot of passion for being alive, and it's just made the last 23 and a half years so fun.
Prince, Sueño, baby in the hizzy, or raga, depending on the day. My pronouns are all of them. Yeah, so what I brought in today is my sombrero, okay? When I was a kid, I'm from California, and, it's very Latino out there. It's a wild, wild west Chicano baby. And every single assembly at school, when I was from kindergarten to 4th grade, there would be a folclórico performance. And what that essentially is a traditional Mexican heritage dance, just representing Latino culture. And there would be, men and women, and they have usually pretty strict binary parts. And it's very machismo to be the dude, and it's pura, just manhood, quote unquote, just for sake of what we're talking about. And I remember being young and just thinking whoa, they look so cool, and the women in their dresses. And I just always wanted to do it. But I knew that if I told my mom and family, they'd probably not be about it. So kind of kept it to myself. But, flash forward all this time, I was approached. Well, actually, I saw somebody doing it. I approached them. About a year later, they approached me and they asked me to be their folclórico partner as the male role. And at that point, I hadn't even considered that I could do the male part, honestly. Even though, I guess obviously now, but for me, it was oh my gosh, I could live I could live the full fantasy. And I could also be this undercover, machismo, but still have my flair and just show people that there's a safe space right here and that anyone could be at any parts of this dance. And I just think it's so cool to be able to represent my Latino culture and also my queerness in this really cool, abstract way.
My name is Leslie Rosenberg. I use she, her pronouns. I brought ephemera from Brass Your Heart, a radical marching band that I'm in. I've been playing in since 2018. I play the clarinet in this band, and we show up to protests, and we get the chanting and the party going. And hopefully we bring people together and connect people and actually, I guess, bring this like certain energy to the movement. So we go to all sorts of protests, and we also go to festivals like Pride festivals, and we go to abortion rights protests. We go to teachers' rights, nurses, immigrant rights. Basically, if people want us to come, they sign a paper and they ask us what it's for, and we decide as a group whether we think it's important to go to. And usually it is. And so we show up. Yeah. I think there's a lot of power in coming together. I don't always think protests are the way that we make change necessarily, but I think what they do is offer a space for action and then also community. And so when you come together and people are speaking about their experience and you're on the street with a sign in your hand, standing up for people's rights and your own rights, and then there's music and you're chanting, there's like this real joy that comes out of it and a sense of connection and community that I think makes the movement stronger. A lot of the protest songs we sing are international. They're from all over the world. So we have The People United Will Never Be Defeated, which is a Latino song, and we chant it in Spanish as well. We have, let's see, You Don't Want to Go to War. So the chant is, you don't want to go to war with the people. Don't start no shit, won't be no shit. Sorry. Don't start no stuff, won't be no stuff. And then Dolly Parton's 9 to 5. Dolly Parton, classic. We all love her. And also, I think 9 to 5 and that movie is all about workers' rights and standing up for yourself and women's rights. And what else? And Decepticon. So Baile Tigra, Riot Girl Band, and general radical thinkers, feminists, and queer protesters. When we share our stories, we connect with each other and we don't feel so alone. And I think in this fascist kind of environment, we're really being divided in a lot of ways. There's a very strong chance that our histories and our lives could be erased. And I think we need to come together and feel supported by each other and feel connected, feel that community. And I also feel like it's hard. I think it's overwhelming.
My name is Tracy Carswell. My pronouns are they, them. And this photo is a picture from the opening reception of Queerphoria Volume 3 with Queer Metalsmiths. And this is really special because Queer Metalsmiths was created to support 2S LGBTQIA+ artists and makers in the jewelry and craft fields. And we had done several virtual exhibitions, and this was our first in person. And we did it in Tennessee, in Cookeville, Tennessee, in between Nashville and Knoxville, where there had been recently a KKK rally, there had been a Nazi rally. So to be able to create this haven of queer joy and community in this little spot in the middle of Tennessee and have it be our first in-person event like that was really special, and it's one of the things I'm most proud of in my life. And we had, so there's me, one of my co-founders, Sulo B, who is also one of the co-curators. And then we have 3 of the artists who showed up to be a part of it. And that was the best. That was the best, to be able to share that moment with them and celebrate being together in community and giving them not just a virtual space, but a physical space that allows them to feel as safe as possible, to feel seen and heard and loved and celebrated. And it's very healing for me as an artist to be able to create those kinds of spaces. So this moment is a moment in history, not just for me, but for our community and for queer and trans artists, especially in the South. I had been part of a group called Metalsmiths for Change that Kendria Thompson had started in 2020, and she put together auctions to raise money for Black folks, for Black and trans folks, to various organizations, Black Girl Therapy. And I was helping her with some of that. And my experience of community and even the allyship of folks who were participating in the Black and trans auction just made me feel like there was something missing for me. Where was my community? Because I used to be part of the women's jewelry, and that stopped feeling like a fit as I expanded my experience of gender. And so I was on the 2020 webinars that we were on Zoom all the time. And someone was talking about passion and purpose. And I was thinking about how to bring queer people together and how to bring jewelry people together. And I remember writing down queer metalsmiths. And then I went and I found the domain name and I got it. And then I went on Instagram and I found the Instagram handle and I got it. And then I sat back. And it's Queer Metal Smiths because I didn't want this to be just about me. I wanted this to be something that our community could build together. And I was really fortunate that over the past several years, I've had Sol Diaz, Sulo B, and Rebecca Lee help with the founding, the curation, and a lot of the work we're doing. So that's a little bit about Queer Metal Smiths. Well, I have gotten so many messages, and we have, as Queer Metal Smiths, have gotten so many messages from people all over the world about the impact of having a place where they could be seen, and that was for them. And as we know, there's a lot happening globally, and especially in the United States. We're at risk of losing a lot of the ground that we've worked to cover over the past so many decades. And so this allows us to find, collect, curate, and archive the words and the works of these artists, as well as sometimes get to put them right in front of people so that they can be seen and people can get a different experience of, or a different perspective of what it is to be queer and trans at this time. But really for me, it's a place to hold. It allows us to hold this while everything else is shaky. We are standing strong and we are holding a space for our people wherever they're at, without it having to be any type of academia, industry standards, accolades. It really just allows them to show up and create. And art is such a powerful form of healing, resistance, processing what's happening, finding community, and finding commonality with people, whether they're in your community or not. So it's such a lovely mix of all those things that allows us to support folks and have records of, we've done 4 volumes of Queerphoria, and we've done 1 volume in collaboration with Society of North American Goldsmiths, where it was queer and BIPOC artists and makers. So we've got hundreds of artists in the US and abroad who are part of our family.
My name is Amanda Trader, and my pronouns are she, they. I've brought a variety of items with me. I've brought some photos and cards from when Liz and I registered as domestic partners with the city of Asheville. That was in 2012. At that point in time, of course, gay marriage was not legal in Asheville or North Carolina. So we just jumped at the opportunity to do what we could. And it was a fun day, and we celebrated with some friends at Asheville Pizza and Brewing later. I also brought some photos from when we did get married in Washington, D.C. That was in July of 2014. Gay marriage was not legal yet in North Carolina in July of 2014. Washington, D.C. was actually the closest place to us that we could get married. It was important to me to get married because Liz and I knew we wanted to get married since 2011, and we just were not allowed to. It was, I hate to say it, but it was so incredibly painful sometimes to attend weddings of our heterosexual friends knowing that we did not have the same right. Logistically and legally, it's important to me because I want to make sure that I can take care of her when she needs me. She can take care of me when I need her. That anything I own in this world would go to her if something were to happen to me. It's important because we're no different than any other humans on this planet, and we deserve the same. So we went there, and a bunch of our closest family and friends joined us there. We went to a courthouse, had a wonderful ceremony, and then went to the National Gallery of Art with our friends and family and had a little reception at a friend's house after, who lived in DC at the time. And it was just a beautiful day all around. Really great memories. I also brought some paintings of mine and a documentary DVD. It's called The Universe of Keep Haring. That documentary is very important to me for many reasons. One being that I watched it with Liz in Athens, Georgia, pretty much right before I realized that I was in love with her and that my life was going to change in a wonderful way. Also, I was just so inspired to see this artist who was unapologetic about who he was in a time where there was even more homophobia. His art and his activism have just inspired me to be who I am, and I really respect all the work he did with ACT UP and with creating the Keith Haring Foundation. I wanted to include my paintings because he's one of my biggest influences, but also because when I paint, it is time where I feel most free, and I feel like my paintings show a certain queer joy and feminism, and they're just the true expression of who I am.
My name is Eduardo Moraes de Oliveira Barbosa. My pronouns are he, him. I have a picture of me and my mom and brother right after we immigrated to the U.S. from Brazil. There's a couple of zines at the bottom that are just important to me for a couple different reasons. In the back, there is a print from my hometown, Recife, in Brazil. showing some of the like cultural dance that's important there. There's also some small leather pieces scattered about that is important to me because I do leatherworking and it's also very ancestral. There's some books, a range of books, some anthropological books and poetry. And then, gosh, there's a picture of my very first tee shot, very first time injecting testosterone 4 years ago today, actually. And then one of my tea bottles as well. And a wooden rosary, because growing up Brazilian, religion is inherently important. And the imagery of that is just really beautiful to me still, even though I do not prescribe to any of that. It's just different pieces of parts of myself that remind me of me and my transness and like how being trans connects and saturates obviously every single part of my life. And building little fragments of that remind me of the home that I want to create. I think the center of it would be safety. And I think that comes in, God, so many different forms. But one thing really important and adjacent to that is understanding and visibility, which is why I think so many aspects of this like archive are important to create like a family of sorts for all of the different flavors of like trans people in Appalachia, to see that there is a greater family outside of the ones they have or not. And that comes from understanding and safety and being visible, which is why I think so many of these mediums are important. I think especially now with a myriad of things happening and going on, I think it's mostly important to be visible for all of the other trans people, especially around, that feel like they are alone or have no history to pull from, especially being brown and queer in Appalachia and being an immigrant and showing the different parts of yourself that all belong to all these different aspects. And all of these separate identities are individually being attacked. So I think it's important now to preserve that and show that we've been here for a long time. And especially now looking to like our queer elders and queer people who have come before us and shown us so many times that like when things get rough, like we have ourselves to look inward to. And
hi, I'm Daniel. I use they and he, and I've brought an assortment of things. Firstly, being the several drawings scattered around, which are collaborations between my partner, Gabriel, and I. Gabriel is a very talented storyteller and loves to come up with concepts that they have me draw. And it's some of my favorite time together when we get to sit and talk these things out, and I get to draw them and bring them to life. I've also brought this trilobite, which was made by my Uncle Hank, my late Uncle Hank. At the time of Hank's death, he was the only out queer person in my family. I did not know him before I transitioned. I knew him before I transitioned, and he did not get to know me after I transitioned, which I find very unfortunate, but I like that I get to carry little bits of him onwards. And I also have a picture of Gabe and I at our first Pride in North Carolina, which was in 2019. It was super fun. It was very hot, but we had a great time. And a picture of one of our 3 little cats, Critter. They're is a distinct effort to erase and censor and stigmatize queer life and queer people and queer bodies. And I think that it's incredibly important that us as queer people, us as trans people, keep persisting despite it all and continue finding joy within the little things and continue just being. One of my favorite quotes is death before detransition, as I say, which I'm 100% behind.
My name is Kass. My preferred pronouns are they, them. I brought today a plate from the set that my grandmother gave me. She was really important to me, and she instilled in me feeding folks. And I brought a slew of other pictures of queer and trans meals, family dinners, big celebrations of trans loved ones, or small picnics in the park with a dear friend. My grandmother was the fancy type and always thought that you should dine with the queen. And so anytime we have family dinners, we eat on fancy plates, and we drink out of fancy glasses, and we have downright fantastic time just being our queerest, our transest, our most authentic selves, sharing a meal. I also had the opportunity to take my grandmother to an art exhibit that I was a part of back in 2023 called Expansive, where I did trans archives. And she came from Sevierville, Tennessee, and was able to see that exhibit that I worked really hard on. And not only that, that was the first time that she got to meet all of my trans family. We got to share a meal together after that. And she also found out then that I was trans, and nothing changed, and she was deeply accepting. And yeah, I'm really lucky to have her memory here all the time, but also here and to share it with the people that I love.
I am Lenny Kyriakoulis. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a queer trans man. Some of these pictures are kind of my life and my childhood in Greece. And this is how my ideas of masculinity and gender were formed. And part of it is really liberating, and part of it was very stifling, because I always grew up feeling like my culture was at odds with my gender identity and my queerness. So a lot of my journey has been trying to reconcile with those two parts of myself and realizing how they can intertwine and coexist. So there's this right here was my grandmother, Yaya Leka. She was an incredibly fierce and powerful woman, and she was so witty and brilliant. And her strength and bravery was incredibly inspiring to me. And I think really crucial that I got to know her and love her. This is my father in our village, Metamorphosi. And I had a very rough relationship with him. He was very unaccepting. I was excommunicated from my family. It was a very shameful and difficult experience. But it's crazy because, you know, so much of my coming into myself as a man, I see so much of him in me, which is a shame. You know, if he were willing to have loved me the way that I am, I feel like we would have had so much in common. But growing up and seeing him as a male figure was kind of really pivotal to me finding my own masculinity and my own gender identity. And there were a couple benchmarks of my transition. So I have the hospital bracelet from when I had one gender affirming surgery. My first passport photo, once I've gotten all my legal documents changed over. An earring from the first time I decided to start presenting more masculinely, and you know, I was so scared, but even just wearing this earring was such a terrifying but liberating experience. And I found some journal entries from a long time ago, things that I would say about not being connected to my body and feeling so separate from it, and feeling like, you know, I was, my soul and my person were two separate things, and my person didn't belong to me almost. And I would have so many entries and things looking back, where I talk about this, and I didn't have a name for it back then, because at that point in my life, I didn't know any other trans people, and I didn't know that the word existed. I just knew that this is how I was feeling. So it was almost affirming to go back and see those kinds of information. And then once I first started coming out, I really went headfirst into queer activism and joining trans groups. So I have some zines here, some slips from Transgender Day of Remembrance. I would go every year and read out all of the names of our siblings whose lives were taken from them too early. And I have kept every single slip from every single one. Here I have a letter from my grandmother, which is the last thing that she ever wrote me. And she was such a pivotal figure in my life and coming into the person that I am. And I don't think that my journey would have been the same without her influence. I think this photo here, I think, is the most kind of impactful in a way, because like growing up in the Mediterranean, the sea is such a huge influence. Like it's an element of nostalgia, but on top of that, like I am absolutely a child of the sea. You know, when my family all decided to leave me because of my gender identity and my queerness, you know, I felt like the ocean was my eternal mother. You know, this was the thing that I felt the most free and the most liberated. And the last time I was in Greece with all my family, I wasn't able to swim in the ocean. I wasn't able to swim in the ocean without a binder on or anything like that. And I just remember feeling so stifled, and this was the perfect analogy for kind of having this wall up that I wasn't able to share with these people. And this is a photograph of my father diving into the water. And I remember the first time that I dove into the water without a binder on, after I had top surgery and all of that stuff. I could feel the water filling every single pore on the sides of my body. And just that experience of being completely suspended, it felt like coming home. Like it felt like this is everything that I've been meaning to, like I was being held by the ocean. Finally, I could feel it on my skin. Yeah, and that was a huge part of my transition.
We created this to help us recreate Beyonce's 7-Eleven music video at the beginning of the COVID lockdown in 2020.
We were alone on the campus of Penland School of Craft because we were
the only people that lived there.
and they sent everyone home. So we got to walk in and out of all the buildings by ourselves.
It was the first time no one had been there I think the whole time it had been open.
Yeah.
So this shirt is particularly special because we started recreating it with just what we had around us, which was pretty easy with our own things. And then got to this shirt and we were like, we have to make one. It's an amazing shirt and we have to make it our own version like we were doing. So obviously Playboy. And then we decided on a unicorn with the bow tie instead of a bunny. And it was the first time we left the mountain, I think, for craft supplies, for art supplies.
To drive to Walmart.
Mm-hmm. So it was very scary and very important, clearly, to us to make this. And the other thing was that after we went for it and put so much thought into it, all of the other parts of this really silly music video, we were like, we have to make all of these other things too. We have to customize everything. And so it just like opened it up and we got more and more laser focused on all of the details of this video. And it was a great way to spend several weeks alone on a mountain.
Well, so this video, I'm going to nerd out for a second because this video it's 169 scenes. So we were individually filming each scene. And at first, we were just kind of wearing clothes that were sort of representative of representing the characters in the original music video. But after this, I feel like we had to refilm some of it because the other things weren't good enough anymore.
I think we started before this with just like the right colored shirt. And instead of making Beyonce's kale sweatshirt, Amanda made a fail sweatshirt because queer failure.
Yeah, but we had just done that with like painter's tape.
Yeah, we just put some tape on it. But that was
like real quick.
The beginning. And also we were making it like an Appalachian mountain version instead of like whatever fancy hotel Beyonce and her bud they're hanging out dancing in. We made it, a lot of her shirts reference certain events. And so we tried to include current events, like the murder of Ahmaud Arbery instead of Mike Tyson. We didn't specifically reference COVID except for all of the like handmade masks we were wearing. What else? It was fun to try and recreate it as exact as possible, but also like with what we had in town and making it specific to us. Can you think of any other?
Well, it was just the two of us filming this thing. And in the actual music video, there's like 6 to 8 to 10 dancers. So we were having to play every character.
Yeah. We definitely subbed in rainbows for just plain white stuff because it has all white clothes anyway.
But we had all rainbow clothes.
Yeah. And instead of cake by the pound, you made your gay by the pound shirt.
Shoulder sideways, smack it in the air. Legs move it side to side, smack it in the air. Legs move it side to side, smack it in the air. Shoulders sideways, smack it in the air. Smack it in the air. Legs move it side to side, smack it in the air. Smack it in the air. Way your hands, I choose, I put it in the air. Way your hands, I choose, I put it in the air. Clap, 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 like you don't care. Smack that, clap, 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 like you don't care. I know you care. Clap, 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 clap it. Foot up, my foot up. Hold up, now my foot up. I'm spinning, my foot up, yeah, my foot up. I'm spinning, my foot up, put my foot down, yeah, my hands up, my hands up, my hands up. Flexing, flexing while my hands up, my hands up, my hands up. I stand up with my hands up, then I put up my hands up. I put up my hands up, I put up my hands up, then I'm spinning on my hands up, spinning, spinning while my hands up, spinning while my hands up, spinning while my hands up, then I'm tipping on my hands up, spinning, I'm spinning, I'm spinning while my hands up, I'm spinning, I'm spinning, I'm spinning while my hands up. Hold that cup like alcohol, hold that cup like alcohol, hold that cup like alcohol. Don't you drop that alcohol, never drop that alcohol, never drop that alcohol. I know you think about alcohol, I know I think about that alcohol. Man is here like rolling dice, man is here like rolling dice. Send me living, seven twice, man, seven twice. Man, it feel like rolling dice, man, it feel like rolling dice, man, it feel like rolling dice. Seven twice, seven twice. Girl, I'm trying to kick it with you, girl, I'm trying to kick it with you. Man, I'm trying to kick it with you, my feet up, I kick it with you. Man, I swear I kick it with you, girl, I wanna kick it with you. Man, I know I kick it with you, yeah, I spin around and I kick it with you. Shoulder sideways, smack it in the air. Legs move it side to side, smack it in the air. Legs move it side to side, smack it in the air. Shoulders move it side to side, smack it in the air. Smack it in the air, smack it in the air. Smack it in the air, smack it in the air. Way your hands, I choose, I put it in the air. Way your hands, I choose, I put it in the air. Clap, 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 like you don't care. Smack that, clap, 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 like you don't care. I know you care. She pink bikini, right back goofy doll that she can never see the edges. Kinky sweating on my blowout, sweating on my press. See this trick about to go off. Mad cause I'm so fresh, fresher than you. I'm fresher than you, fresher than you. Oh.
Okay, how are we doing it? I know, but are we doing 1, 2, 3? 1, 2, 3, blow.
1, 2, 3, blow.
Okay.
My name is Gabe Haaland, and my preferred pronouns are he, him, and they, them. There's a few pictures of me in sort of activist moments, one of which, far left, is me getting an award for my activism for labor rights in San Francisco. And for the LGBT community nationally, I was vice president of Pride at Work, AFL-CIO, which is a national LGBT labor rights group. And so, yeah, I was getting an award. There's a picture of Harvey Milk in the background, who was sort of a hero to me. And see, there's a picture of me on the bullhorn. I was frequently on bullhorns speaking at rallies and sort of rallying folks around various issues, workers' rights, tenants' rights, police brutality, environmentalism, just a bunch of different issues, healthcare. The picture in the middle was taken of me at the San Francisco Trans March. The Trans March in San Francisco has been around for about 21 years, and I was one of the original organizers of the Trans March, and it was sparked off by a hung jury of a young woman, Gwen Araujo, who was a young trans teen who was murdered by several youth they use the trans panic defense, which basically saying if you're trans and you're murdered, the people who murdered you can say, oh, I didn't know they were trans, and once I found out it was, I killed them, I should get a diminished, a lesser sentence because of it. And not only did they not get sentenced, but there was a hung jury, and it was pretty clear that they murdered him. There wasn't any question about it, but I think it was people were confused on the issue because of this trans panic defense. Anyway, we organized and had a mass rally and march. The trans march became much more celebratory. It went from being a small group of people to literally 20, 30,000 people roaming the streets of San Francisco for trans rights. And so it's been going now for 21 years. Very exciting. But yeah, that picture was of me at the trans march. And then, and then the upper frame is about when I ran for supervisor in City and County of San Francisco for Board of Supes. I got elected several times and was a commissioner for the Board of Appeals in San Francisco. And so I had various leadership positions while I was in San Francisco. I didn't quite make it to Board of Supes, but it was a very exciting run and I came pretty close. So that was fun. Anyway, those are some of the highlights of my activism over the years. I was trying to explain why I was so passionate about trans healthcare for just one issue. And as an everyday person in the world who wanted healthcare, I had to become an activist to get secure, good, affordable trans healthcare. But I think more broadly, I've always believed in coalitions, and so I've always believed in intersectionality. And I believe that even when an issue is not my issue, it is my issue because an injury to one is an injury to all. And so when police brutality happens against a person of color, or as elderly seniors being evicted, or someone loses their job because of retaliation at work, those are my issues, even if it's not me. And so I've been active on those fronts because I believe in coalitions and I believe in intersectionality.
Hi everyone, my name's Robert, and about 26 years ago, I was estranged from my father. Well, I wasn't exactly estranged, he booted me out of the house. Anyway, recently he and I have reconnected, and this is a letter that I'm sending to him this week. Dear Dad, I know you have questions. I know you're confused. I am too. I wish I had all the answers. Well, maybe not. Maybe I like knowing there are no answers. When I came out as a dyke, I didn't know how you would respond. You told me you didn't want me around the house. I was scared to be on my own. I was 18. But the funny thing is, it didn't feel like such a big deal to come out. I wanted to sleep with women. And once I came out, I could. But it didn't feel right. I didn't feel seen. And for 12 years, I was pigeonholed as a butch dyke. But it just wasn't me. I remember meeting my first out trans guy. I was in law school, and there was a panel on gays and lesbians in the law. And the guy, he didn't look very gay to me. Maybe I'm being stereotypical, but anyway, he came out as transsexual, and everyone in the room stopped breathing. Or maybe I just held my breath for everyone. Coming out as trans wasn't the same as coming out for me as a dyke. I spent months squirming, being depressed, feeling scared, wishing it would go away. It was 12, 13 years ago, and it wasn't as hip to be trans then. And I was just graduating from law school, and I knew I wouldn't get a job. I knew I'd lose some of my friends, and I did. And I feared that no one would ever sleep with me again. That didn't happen. Thank you. All those things came true and didn't come true. For a year, I kind of stumbled about. And if it wasn't for my roommate, I probably would have ended up homeless. The funny thing is that once I decided to come out, a whole new set of challenges emerged. I wanted my body to match my internal reality. Over the years, I got surgery on my chest, took shots of testosterone in my butt, and my body started to look male. But when I started to look male, people started to see me and treat me just like any other straight guy. Part of it I liked. Every time I got a shot, I could feel the testosterone rushing through my body. I wanted to eat meat, listen to rock and roll. I felt like a teenage boy, and I even got pimples, no kidding. But Dad, the thing is, I'm queer. As my body started to solidify my identity, I found my internal reality wanting more fluidity, wanting to dislocate people's narratives about me, wanting to challenge myself even more to break down fixed notions of masculinity. I found myself even less seen and less understood than before. The testosterone changed my body, changed my personality. I became less sensitive, more aggressive. It brought out some of the worst parts of my personality. Last year, I stopped getting shots of testosterone. See, Dad, I've realized that I have a different project for my life. I don't want to be just a man like everyone else. My politics, my life, and even my love are a lot more fluid than that. I want a different world for myself. If I were to tell you that I think that there aren't two boxes to check off on gender, would that make sense? If I were to tell you there is as many genders as there are people, would that make sense? And some of those genders aren't male, and some aren't female, and some are both. If I let myself be free, if I let myself go, I find that I don't want to relate to the world in those ways. Sure, people are going to read me the way they read me. I can only do mine and not get caught up in other people's shit. I think I see another world coming, and I think we can do better. I know I want to. Doing it the way I did before had too many costs to me and undermined my integrity. I was going against myself. And I don't think I'm alone. I think there's a lot of us trying to do it different, trying to challenge ourselves to be free, to be unafraid of breaking the silence about how we do our lives, how we do our gender, and how we love. I love you, Dad. When you sent me that birthday card and it was addressed to your son, my heart tugged. I knew you were trying, and I knew that no matter how confusing it was to you, you knew it was important to recognize me differently. But I hate to break it to you, there's more to recognize. And not just about me. See, I think the world does violence on us when it tries to make us into what men are supposed to be. And I think we do violence against ourselves in trying to become men. That violence gets externalized. We find ourselves abusing others, violating ourselves. Can you see it? Can you see the emotional costs? It takes on a different meaning, a nuanced meaning, when I as a trans man say this. Aren't you thinking, because I'm trans, I have the choice to be man or not, right? The choice to be male was mine, and so why am I rejecting that what I have chosen? Yeah, but see, I think we all choose our gender, how we express it, how we create it, how we perform it. I chose to be male to express it outwardly, what I felt within, but I didn't choose and don't choose all the baggage that comes along with being a man in this society. I hope that you can see that I want all of us to see that we can choose. We can be free. We can reimagine the world we are in and the way we relate to each other. We have our contradictions in our gender. See, by doing this, we begin loving ourselves in ways that begin to bring about not just our own happiness, but long-term change that will, if we choose, end our wars, end our violence against women, end our violence against ourselves. I bet you don't remember this, but you once told me you had a hard time reading books by women and people of color. That the way they think didn't make sense to you. The thing is, in this fucked up, racist, sexist, homophobic world, they're the authors that make the most sense to me. When I'm looking for a new world, I think of what Arundhati Roy said. Another world is not only possible, she's on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. So much is at work to make me invisible, to make any sort of gender fluidity invisible. Breaking the silence about our gender jail and daring to speak about the potential for freedom directly challenges the normalizing tendencies of our world. But I want to confront and undermine those who would normalize me because my silence, our silence, does not protect us. The transformative power we have collectively when we choose freedom together can alter power in ways we don't even recognize yet. I do believe that by challenging these power systems, we also begin to combat other interlocking oppressions. I hope you'll join me, Dad. See, Dad, when I look in the mirror these days, I see you. I see the same eyes, the same salt and pepper hair that crinkles around my eyes, and even the cowboy boots. Dad, we can breathe it together. I love you, Dad.
My name is Crain Cutler, and my pronouns are they, them, it, and its. And I brought 3 teapots. They are, 2 of the teapots are from my grandma's, my grandmama Crain and my grandmama Cutler. And to me, there's something just really, really Southern and really comforting about a teapot. And it just, something about it just immediately kind of gives me like a cozy feeling. And yeah, I think that they're such an important part of Southern culture, and also kind of antiquated and in a lot of ways. And so I really love them for those reasons. And the teapots from my grandma's in particular, I see them and I immediately remember being a little kid. And one of my grandmas was queer, and I didn't know that when I was younger. And so now when I get to think back on my time spent with her, I kind of have this like little like heart flutter, just thinking like how grateful I am that she was willing to be who she was so that one day I could be who I am. And the third teapot is by a Bauhaus artist named Marianne Brandt, who, according to a lot of art historians, was queer. And her teapot, it's a really incredible piece of art, but it is also a really well-made functional piece that was discredited because it was so attractive. And according to the Bauhauslers, if you made something that was attractive instead of, the priority being put on functionality, then it wasn't truly Bauhaus. And so when they told her that the tea set she designed wasn't really Bauhaus, she silently poured herself a cup of tea. And it turned out that she had invented like a no-spill spout, no-drip spout. And to me, there's just something really beautiful about the idea of literally sitting down and drinking a cup of tea to like tell your detractors that they can go drink tea.
I came out of the closet when I was 14 years old to my mom first. My father was a Baptist minister, and I waited until I left home to tell him. But my mom and my sisters knew early on. And it was almost kind of a funny conversation because my mom said to me, well, how do you know? And I was like, trust me, I know. Right? In 1989, I'm like, girl, don't be asking questions you don't want the answers to. But for me, I've never lived any part of my adult life in the closet. And the fact that I'm almost 50, a lot of my friends lived in the closet for quite a while before they told anybody. And I just felt like I couldn't do that. I felt like I needed to be honest with my parents and let them know that I was probably going to hell, and I was sorry that was true. So I was trying to sort of like ease them into it. I was really lucky that my mother and my sisters are the most amazing people and accepted me. And my dad, even though I think it was a much harder conversation when I was 19, I said to him, you kind of have 2 choices. You can accept me the way that I am and let go of whatever problems you have with it, or I just won't come home anymore and I just won't deal with this. And I was really lucky that my dad was like, no, I want to know you. I want you to come home. I don't want you to just tell me to suck it, which I think he pretty much knew at 19, I was going to say. And so for me, I just really feel like I've lived through this time period where when I came out at 14 in 1989, I heard lots of things. I heard it's not real. I heard it's a phase. I heard you'll change your mind. I also heard worse things, like you're going to burn in hell, like you're Satan's child or whatever. I really let it go. I decided that nobody gets to tell me what my relationship is with God or spirituality or whatever it is that's out there. And I decided that even though I do care how people feel, I don't care what they think. My choices are my choices, and I want to be happy. And so, that just, I think, led me through my adult life of feeling really free and really owning who I am and really not being afraid to tell everybody that if they didn't like it, then I would go my own way and figure out something else. And so I think right now in 2025, it's really important for me to remind people that it wasn't that long ago, that it was really hard. And it wasn't that long ago that I watched many of my queer friends get kicked out of their families, my wife included, who was thrown out of her house at 16. So we've been here. We've done this. If you look at queer history and you go back, you realize we've always been back and forth here. we've always been dealing with this, at least for the last 2,000 years, where certain religious ideas have been so prevalent. And I just think it's important for people to know you can still live your life and you can still be really happy. You can still find an endless amount of love, and you can really stand on the shoulders of your queer ancestors when you need the courage to let go of the people who don't truly love and accept you.
We're being erased, like politically. I think what's happening in the government is they're trying to erase an identity. They're trying to make us smaller and discouraged and not important. And that's just not the case. We have a rich culture, whether or not it's visible to mainstream. And so I think projects like this bring visibility to our lives and what's going on in small groups of peers on a mountain in Appalachia or downtown in Asheville or wherever. It just, what's happening now makes it so that we have to do this preservation ourselves.
While we were getting ready for this, and I was looking through the photo book in the office, and there's all these great images of people protesting over the years. And I think even though this was like a silly thing we did for fun in our mental health, like you were saying, it's queer joy. And I think that it's important to document us having fun just for the sake of having fun. And just kind of like the stuff, even though, once again, this is super silly, the queer view where you can take something and like just turn it a little bit is how we build our future, make it better and make it safe for everyone and joyful for everyone. So I think that having evidence of that is also important to inspire everyone who comes after us and with us.
Everyone's pretty aware at this point that there's been a lot of scrubbing of websites of transgender people and transgender histories. Polly Murray's federal website page was taken down, and Polly Murray is a really, in my opinion, a giant in the civil rights movement. They wrote the legal argument that basically desegregated our country, and they were lesbian for a period of their life, but they also identified explicitly as male and asked for gender-affirming care from their doctor. I don't know how they would have identified if they lived today, but they obviously had a complicated gender and a complicated sexuality, and no part of that should be erased, and it should be celebrated that someone of that, they worked alongside Betty Friedan and co-founded the National Organization of Women. They worked alongside A. Philip Randolph and Martin Luther King and others to secure civil rights for everyone, literally they wrote the legal argument that other civil rights attorneys and Supreme Court justices relied on to overturn desegregation in America. And they were literally the person, it was like the Bible of the civil rights movement. And yet they're not very well known, in part, in my opinion, because they're of their sexuality and gender, because they didn't fit into the stereotypes of what we think of, whether it's the National Organization of Women or other organizations. They just were more complicated. At any rate, I say that to say that all of our histories are important. The religious right would like to completely erase us, and they take down our websites, they take our pictures down, they take our histories away, they take our books away, we take away from academic institutions. They're scrubbing LGBT studies away from institutions. But it matters that we share our stories. And I say that as someone who, right now, we're dealing with gender-affirming healthcare bans. And there's been some recent efforts to try and ban adult care. So far, it doesn't seem to be panning out, but they're trying to take it out of Medicaid and a ban on Medicaid, gender affirming care for Medicaid and gender affirming care under the Affordable Care Act. And why that is important is, yes, they could take away our gender affirming care, but it's more complicated. People, I don't think, understand what it means, because it wouldn't erase us. We would still be here and we'd still be resisting, but it would be devastating.
Having access to gender affirming care or being able to be married or anything like that is being able to form what home looks like to you, and that is being stripped away with different rural hospitals being taken away. And that's how a lot of people have access to gender affirming care, especially in the South, or different like funding streams just drying up for so many small nonprofits. That's again where a lot of young trans kids have exposure to other older trans people, or even being able to go see a therapist or anything like that. And so it's just our basic humanity is unfortunately being again targeted in the form of healthcare and civil rights that you would think we would not have to fight anymore. And at the same time, for me personally, everything that's going on with immigration and all of that and ICE raids and all of these things, like, it can so easily be forgotten that there's trans people, there's queer people being disappeared off the streets. And it's terrifying because I very much know that, like, I could be stuck in that as well. And so I, again, think that all of these things are important because the people should know that all of our identities are connected. And whether it's like an ICE raid, scooping up however many people, or not being able to go to the hospital and get your tea or your estrogen or anything, that we're just being attacked from so many sides.
I don't think it's ever a bad time to share and preserve our stories, but we are being actively erased. The fact that my gender just doesn't exist to the government is a wild thing. And when dominant culture is essentially trying to exterminate you, you really, really have to make sure that people know you were there. And I also think it's important because just because of what we're dealing with, kids aren't going to stop being queer. And it terrifies me that the things I grew up with, seeing my elders die of AIDS, and being really, really lost, I don't want them to experience that. And I want them to know that they're not alone and they're not an aberration. And so as I get older, now that I'm in my 40s, it's really important for me to be visible, even though I don't want to be, because kids need to see themselves reflected.
I think it's particularly crucial now when our histories are being actively and deliberately erased, and our identities are politicized and policed at every age and every region. You know, it's seeped into the ethos of our socio-political atmosphere, this deep transphobia. And I think it's so crucial to canonize our experiences because they are being dissolved. You know, the libraries are being burned, so to speak. So I think we need to keep those histories alive.
We've always existed, always. There are archival documents showing, you know, tribes that are native to the Americas have always been accepting and loving of their trans and queer siblings. Trans people have always been here and we will always be here. And saving a snapshot of our time and space and experience will hopefully be able to encourage our future generations of trans and queer people to continue to go, to keep doing more, to keep being themselves
to keep finding your people, to keep gathering around food and being with each other, because it's important and we deserve it.
I think that in a time of erasure and censorship, it's really important for us to remember those touchstones, to remember someone like Lee Bowery, to remember all of these artists who came before us and the space that they allowed their bodies to fill.
Because there's been a lot of history that was erased that's really important for us to know about. And so going forward, it's always important to know who got you to where you are so that the younger generation can know that things aren't always coming so easily, that there were people that fought for that. And then that also gives them the courage that if they have to fight, then they know that they can do it the way that we have done it. 10 years of fighting for marriage equality was like both a long time and a short time. It does take time for things to change, and it is a tireless fight, and we never know when the tide's going to turn. But marriage equality is one where we really did change people's opinions, like the whole public's general opinion changed in a fairly short time. So whatever is the fight of the moment, if this is like in the future, I hope that you'll continue fighting and not give up and know that you can make a huge difference.
There has been so much pain and suffering in our past, and I don't believe in letting that be in vain. I think that everything kind of affects each other, and it would, in my personal opinion, be a dishonor to our ancestors if we didn't continuously do the work the way that, in my opinion, they intended us to do.
It's more important than ever to share the stories that we have in queer community, and the story I'm wanting to share is this one of pure love energy that is so freeing to all of us when we first have those like first experiences, second experiences. And it's important because the state and the powers that be are trying to take that away from us. And there's a reason why. It's because that love is a force that frees us, and not just queer people, it frees all people. And it's important for us to see that queer people have been doing this and loving each other and making space for each other to express themselves naturally for all of time.
It's love to show up for people and to show up for yourself in the smallest of ways and in the grandest of gestures. Just even being there to say, hey, I see you and I love you. That is how we've been existing for millennia and will continue to. I think all the time about during the AIDS crisis, when they would talk about, they would bury their friends and then go protest and then go dance, because all of these things are such crucial parts of loving one another, to commemorate and to show up and also to feel joy and love.
We need as many people out there to get to know us as individuals, but also as a community. I think a lot of hate comes from being afraid of what you don't know. And the more understanding there is about our community, the better chances we have to close the gap of fear and ignorance and hate. There are so many good people in this world who are working every day to make the world a better place. And we need to hold on to each other and need to hold on to that hope. All of us have so many different skills and things to bring to the table. And when we come together and when we live our authentic truths and themselves, we can make a better, more equitable world.
We should be able to be the most vibrant and expansive version of ourselves. And the wonderful gift that the LGBTQ plus community gives to the world at large is that we teach them new ways that they are allowed to exist, new possibilities for what they're allowed to do with their bodies, with their actions, with their lives.
Has gotten really bad and scary before for queer people. especially for Black queer people, especially for Black trans people. And it has gotten scary before. It is scary now. It will get scary again at some point. And the fact that we always find a way to get through it, to get what we need and stand together. I just always find hope and solidarity and the community around me. And I know that despite all the scary stuff, like, we will figure out a way. Being Appalachian and from the South, like, we have grit and we're going to figure out one way or another how to do it. And regardless of all of everything that's happening, I know that there's still joy in it. There's still hope. There's still beauty in it. There's still the gift of itself just being trans and being able to exist in that space. And so no matter how much of a target that puts on my back, being brown or queer or Southern, I know that those are the same identities that I still hold a lot of pride in. And it took me a long time to get there, but I just love it so much now. And yeah, I think it's just important to realize that the duality in that of how it can make you stand out, but it's also really beautiful for the same reasons.
In the world of looking forward and folks looking back, I think, wow, what do we say? Don't stop creating, even if you don't think it's good, even if nobody sees it, even if it doesn't get sold, it doesn't get hung up, no one knows you made it. If you're making it and it's providing you with some peace and some joy, then make your art. And I would also say, find community in creativity, because there's just so much possibility. And there are lots more people out there who love and support you than you think. And if you keep moving yourself forward and you start finding little pockets, you'll start rippling outward and finding even more individuals who are part of the community or who are allies or who are surprisingly seeming like they are not your people, but they are. And there are good people out there who have got your back. There are people who love you who will never meet you and have never talked to you, just like me. I'm one of those people, and I send you loves. I love you. You are loved always.